a good relationship is built on vulnerability. You need to have that and talk about deep and meaningful things. Sometimes I think men just, we have conversations. They're not very deep, though. They can be about, what's going on during the day, projects, other friends, and efforts. But sometimes we don't really get opportunities to talk about the things that we fear, the things that are challenges, opportunities, and our emotions. And so being open to those conversations and vulnerable, besides just being there, is great.
Welcome to Currents. I'm your host, Dana Robb, and this is a podcast of Big Ocean Women, and we're the world's leading network of maternal feminists. And today we're really excited to have two guests, Kawika Allen, who is a professor and researcher at BYU. He's also the husband of founder Carolina Allen, and we're so excited that he's willing to share some of his insights today. We're also excited to have Nathan Ormsby. He's the director of wellness at BYU. Tell us a little bit more about what that entails.
Yeah, so I've been at Brigham Young University for about 15 years now, in some different roles, from advising multicultural students to events and family programs, but now in student wellness, overseeing wellness for students on campus. So the facilities, wellness programs, outreach mostly through sports and physical competition, as well as outdoor programs and activity classes too.
Yeah, that's awesome. You both have worked together, know each other pretty well. I know
Yes, yeah.
Kavika said you guys feel like you're brothers.
We're the Bald Brothers.
Yeah.
Awesome. And have a lot of experience with wellness, I think. So that's what we want to have you on here today, because sadly, the modern feminists view men as kind of unnecessary, unneeded, and I think that needs to change. We need to return to the idea that men truly are valuable, and we need to build those interdependent relationships together to support one another. I know if we look at statistics, the evidence is obvious that fathers are needed. A couple that I wanted to read really quickly, specifically about daughters. So girls whose fathers left before age 6 have the highest rate of early sexual activity and teen pregnancy. Daughters of absent fathers are more likely to experience trust issues, difficulty developing healthy relationships, and challenges with intimacy and conflict resolution. Conversely, girls with emotionally engaged fathers are more likely to develop healthy relationships and have higher self-esteem. So we need fathers in our life. I think the same is also true for sons. Sons also have a lot greater risk of ending up in jail if they don't have an active father. And there's a lot of more statistics we could talk about there. But I just want to start off with the question, giving the importance of fatherhood in the lives of the rising generation, what can society do to recognize their contribution?
That's a really good question, Dana. And thank you for having me and Nathan, my good colleague from BYU. We're thrilled to be here and to share a little bit of our thoughts related to fatherhood and men in society. My personal take on what you just asked is, I think society, in a way, is there's been a decay of the importance and value of men in society. And there are various circles of influential groups that tend to move in that direction. Perhaps, feminism could be a part of that historically. Aside from feminism, other groups where they may not see men as a contributing component to society in various ways, where they may think, well, it's not needed. Men are not needed. Women can do everything that men can do. Women can raise children and work and do all these other different things and have different roles. And certainly they can, while at the same time, I would contend to share that men have a special place and contribution to society and the family and marriage and a relationship between a wife and a husband, as well as children, and how children can feel a healthy connection and attachment with their fathers in the home. As you just shared, statistically speaking, it's more likely that they will come out being a little bit more psychologically stable and have success and joy in life when both the man and the woman, the father and mother are at home, that it can create a sort of a healthy culture at home, right? So So there's a lot of research around that, psychological research, and I've seen a lot of that, and I've conducted some of that research, but I think now is the time to really um, place men in a place where they could be valued in the relationship and in the family as equal contributing partners with the mother, with the wife, and the children as a whole in the family. So time is now to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what do you think the women as wives and mothers can do to show that value for the men in their lives? Nathan, do you want to answer to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I really think some of that relationship, and thanks for having me on as well. But the important thing I think about is my relationship with um, my children's mother and my wife. How do I model a good relationship where we can show that there's a good relationship, we can depend on each other, we care for each other and support each other emotionally and mentally and physically in goals and through challenges and opportunities. And so being able to model that together and work together in that role as a couple really has helped. You know, as you said, I think about my daughter and the relationships that she has, and perhaps ways to relate to males through the experiences she's had with me and her brothers. But then also my son seeing that example of how I respect my wife and respect my daughter and her needs and her challenges. And so I think working together in that is really important and acknowledging it's not perfect. There's a lot of
Mhm.
discussion. There's a lot of mistakes that I've made along the way. But honestly, you know, wanting to give each other the benefit of the doubt and move forward in those efforts is really important.
Yeah, I like that you're mentioning that modeling, that it starts with, you know, taking that place and modeling it for your children, and then you're raising them with that reality of what a man is capable of and what he's responsible for, that providing and protecting that role that he has. And then we're raising a generation of young men that know who they are
Right.
and their sisters and their mothers treat them with that respect, and then they are inviting that respect, I think, back into their lives. I think, yeah, starting with the current generation, we raise them up to and model that. It's a perfect example.
And there's
So,
not a lot of good, unfortunately, socially role models. You know, historically in the media and social
right.
media, you know, the role models, I think back to, you know, just sitcoms and, you know, the way that fathers are portrayed, or the bumbling kind of
Mm,
father that doesn't know what's going on or is kind of
yeah.
inept. You know, those kind of characteristics are not as often now, but then now on social media too, you know, things that are respected and maybe valued and encouraged through social media aren't quite the same relationships or models that I think, you know, the rising generation could move towards. They don't show
Yeah.
the whole picture properly.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. So we really need to see more of that in media. I think media modeling it would be a great way to improve
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
Yeah.
Dana,
Um,
I was going to just share real quick. Another part of that is, and you shared very perfectly the protector provider roles that men have, and those are certainly really important. While at the same time, I think men in this generation should also sort of break down the barriers of the fear of being vulnerable or expressing emotion, and that we can actually be nurturers too, right? We can also love and express love to our children and care for them, nurture them, change their diapers, you know, cook for them, hug them and put them to bed and read to them and all the things that traditionally women and mothers would do. I think men can do that as well, and they should um, seek out to do that more often to kind of to sort of fight back against the this sort of stereotype of you know, men are strong and they're not weak, and they're those aren't their duties. Those are only duties of the mother and the wife, and that's actually something that I try to do, and I'm sure Nathan as well. I think all men and husbands should strive to be more nurturing as well. I think it's just helpful for our children to see that modeling of a nurturing father.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm so glad you brought that up. And the emotional state of men, I think that would be great to discuss the current emotional state of men. What are some things that men are facing? Because I think typically statistically more likely for a woman to seek out therapy and to receive help for her emotional state of being. Where are we finding men at today?
Yeah, so over the years, historically, stigma around mental health services and mental health counseling has been high and increasing over the years among men more so than women. Women are more likely to seek out help, professional help from psychologists, therapists, and so forth, and certainly are more inclined to be vulnerable and express emotion and be open about their personal lives, right? And I've seen that among cultures, specifically Pacific Islander cultures. I've seen that
Mhm.
across non-Pacific Islander cultures, white cultures, and other ethnicities. But there's sort of a surgence of research and studies looking at how beneficial it is for men to also fight against the stigma of mental health or mental illness, mental health struggles, and seeking mental health counseling and psychological services. And we're seeing, although it's a slow uptick, we are seeing that men are becoming a little bit more open and vulnerable and willing to seek out help from therapists and to talk with their buddies, their male friends and others, just to be a little bit more open about those things. And we're seeing that while it's a little bit slow or slower, we are seeing that they are more willing to do it these days rather than like 30, 40 years ago compared to those times. It was a lot more, stigmatized, and men were supposed to be macho and strong and not be weak and show emotion.
Mm.
Uh, Now with this new generation, maybe part of our generation, Nathan and I, we're seeing a lot more men being a little bit more vulnerable, open, and expressive with their emotions and seeking psychological services.
Yeah. Anything else that you'd want to add to that, Nathan?
Yeah, just I really support, those ideas that Kavika's been talking about, in that men feel that pressure to hold a presence of, I've got it under control, I know what I'm doing, I've got, I don't need any help. But it's been really, beneficial, even just kind of sharing a personal story. I think it's important that, as you're seeing others struggle, and help them identify those things that they're going through. I know I had an employer actually who had identified that, Nathan, you're kind of struggling with some things. It seems like, have you considered you have depression? And I had never thought about that before.
Mhm.
And so through some other kind of diagnosis, I do. I was diagnosed with depression and still take medication for that. And so I think being open to others' observations and having that conversation, um, being open about maybe that you do struggle with depression, and that's something that comes and goes. Sometimes it's really easy and other times it's not, but you're seeking help and doing those things. And then lastly, just having a support, being able to talk to friends, talk to a partner, and being able to say, hey, I'm having a rough day, just give me a little bit of space, and that's okay. Or, it's just, I'm quiet, this is what I'm experiencing right now. And being open and talking about those um, have been really beneficial, I guess, in my experience, and what I try to tell students that I work with, young adults and young men, to be open to those conversations. They don't have to
Mhm.
happen behind closed doors. I have a running joke with Kavika that whenever I leave or we say goodbye, I always say, "I love you, bye," right? And just showing that emotional support and care is not something that you do often enough. And especially
Yeah.
among men, we should be okay to say, "We care for each other, we're looking out for you, and it's important."
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think when we're vulnerable with each other, we actually can feel closer and more connected. My
Right.
husband's actually really good at this, maybe too good. He likes to share everything and he's very open but it is really helpful for me as a wife to know where he's at. And I feel like I have a lot more compassion for him when he's open about what he's feeling or the stresses he's under, or the things he's experiencing. I feel like I can then step in and know how to support him a little bit more and maybe give him a little bit more of a break, on those hard days where if we are stuffing it inside and we're just holding on to it and nobody knows, then you can misunderstand and become offended or hurt a lot easier. So as speaking from the wife's perspective, I truly appreciate when he's open and vulnerable about what he's experiencing.
A good relationship is built on vulnerability. You need to have that, and talk about deep and meaningful things. Sometimes I think men just, we have conversations, they're not very deep though. They can be about, what's going on during the day, projects, other friends and efforts. But sometimes, we don't really get opportunities to talk about the things that we fear, the things that are challenges, opportunities, and our emotions. And so being open to those conversations and vulnerable, besides just being there, is great.
Yeah. So let's speak a little bit more to that. As wives and mothers, what can we do to support the men in our lives to help them open up? What helps and maybe what hurts?
A really good question. I think that this depends, and it's different for every marriage. It's different for every family, but I guess I can speak maybe in general and then more specifically to my experience. And you shared this earlier, Dana. I think when women and wives can see that men are stressed out on a particular day, or they've had a hard time at work, or they're feeling down or discouraged, or like a failure as men, not being able to provide or protect, right? Provide and protect, which is sort of assumed that that's what we're supposed to do. Maybe they can be a little bit more sensitive and aware of our emotions and aware of our stresses as men and providers, and maybe ask about our day, or ask about how we're doing, and offer support, emotional support, or maybe go for a walk and just talk it out, or talk with men about what they're going through. So really, women are doing this already, and I think wives do a great job because they're more inclined to really immediately express their emotions more readily, but maybe do so a little bit more on those days when men are really struggling to fulfill a role that they have as men, right? Whatever that role looks like for them. But I think just having that little time to check in with them, ask them about them, how are they doing, what can they do to support emotionally, things like that, I think go a long way. And so I'm sure that that's what wives are doing, and maybe just a little bit more awareness around that could help as well.
Sometimes that can seem like a lot, so it also doesn't have to be a burden that they all have to bear on their own. I really have appreciated my wife when she listens and she does, respond appropriately. Like if it's just give me a minute, then she's okay to give me a minute. Or if I want to talk, or we just want to sit next to each other on the couch and I just need to be close, that's great. But she's also understands that, having a person, someone that I can talk to that's maybe not her, is helpful as well. Another male that I can connect to and say, yeah, this is kind of normal. I'm not the only one going through this. We
Mm.
both are feeling different challenges and um, you know, airing those kind of feelings out in a way that doesn't feel like I have to still impress my wife, and just be a little bit more vulnerable with another male. So encouraging finding another good friend to talk to, and do an activity or be together and have a good friend that is also a male that you can talk to about those things. And if you're embarrassed, or if you're challenged, not quite there to talk to your spouse about it, talk to them about it. And you can be a little inappropriate, or you can be a little bit more discreet, whatever you need, but that's okay too, and allow that space for them to have a friend. And yeah, I think that really helps too.
I think, yeah, Nathan hits it right on. And I think men, they have some research around this where women expand their friendship groups after marriage, and men actually don't.
Mm.
They actually tend to not have a whole lot of friends after they get married, because their lives are consumed with their wives and children, and doing all the things that they need to do to keep the family moving in their own role, right? And so I think Nathan is absolutely right. I think we need, as men, we need social interaction with other men where we can count on them as supportive friends, where we can go and check in with things, just like actually a lot of women do, right? I think women have a really good sense of how they connect with each other and have these groups of friends that support. I think men don't have that. A lot of men don't have that, and I think we need to kind of intentionally seek out friends, male friends, to hang out with and be with and go to lunch with. Like Nathan and I'll just share this. We often hang out during the week at work. We go to, lunch, or we do this, we do that. We go exercise together, and we have that time to talk together. And I look forward to those times. I look forward to hanging out with Nathan because it helps me connect with him, and it kind of stabilizes my day, right?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And they need support outside of the home. They need the guy interactions where they can be a little bit different than they would be with their own wife.
Yeah.
Go out and go shooting, or go out to lunch, or go play some basketball or golfing or whatever it is,
Oh,
finding something that they can do regularly.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan golfs quite a bit, and I've gone with him.
Okay.
He doesn't like me golfing with him because I'm terrible at golf and he's really good. But I go just for the social reasons.
Yeah.
Well, my wife picked up golf. She's the one that's getting better than me right now. So yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah, we go together a lot now. So
Which is good.
That's cool. That's really good. So, another question is, how can we build better interdependence with men? We've talked about the emotional support. How do we learn to depend on each other a little bit better and build our families and our communities together? Where a lot of feminism is like pushing men and women apart. How do we come back together as interdependent partners?
Go for it, Nathan.
yeah, what comes to mind is this idea that we do have just as individuals different gifts and abilities that we bring, and we need to be able to recognize those and acknowledge that those are there and that they contribute and support each other. It doesn't have to be a competition, and it doesn't have to be mine's better than anyone else's, or I can do with mine and without yours. They really do help. And being able to acknowledge it, being able to say, I understand that you do things differently in a different way. That's
Mm,
okay. We're kind of looking for the same thing. Sometimes, as I have conversations with my wife, or sometimes even arguments, it's like, well, we're saying the same thing. We just say it differently.
mm,
And so sometimes just saying, we're doing different things, but we want the same outcome. And it's
mm.
okay to say, we're going to get to the same place, do it your way. Or in the same way that she may say, I understand, we're trying to achieve the same thing, do it your way. And just being understanding of those things. And then I also think there's a lot of another element of just decision fatigue between people, and that we're always deciding different things and trying to decide what we need to do in this next instance, what we're going to have tomorrow, what we're going to wear tomorrow, what this person's going to do, how I'm going to act. Um, Working together and understanding who's making decisions really helps as well. Being able to say, okay, I don't have to worry about this decision, you've got that, and communicating with each other, okay, you've got that, I can take these decisions. And just we make a lot of decisions, and having fatigue is a challenge for everybody, and relying on each other's decisions really matters.
So simplifying. Let's make, okay, you're in charge of dishes and you're always going to do dishes. I'm going to be in charge of the lawn mowing. That's my husband's thing. He loves mowing the lawn and I never have to worry about it. He takes care of it. It's really great, and it does help eliminate some of the struggle and the stress of everyday life when you've just decided on, what, I'm going to take care of this because I'm really good at this, and you're going to take care of that because that you've got that handled. I like
Right.
that. Something else you said reminds me, the differences that we have. They're both valuable. So Tim Rarick was on our podcast last year. He's a professor at BYU, Idaho, and he was talking about, mothers and fathers are both needed in the home because they both have different roles. And he compared them to, like, a spoon and a fork. And, you can eat yogurt with a fork, but it's not going to be very successful. It's going to be a lot more challenging. You can eat steak with a spoon, but it might be a little bit more difficult. And so having both utensils makes eating a lot more pleasurable and enjoyable. And so it's the same with dads and moms. We need both to be able to really have a successful home. And obviously, we're speaking to the ideal. Not every situation is going to have that. And so being able to understand and support and work with what we've got, and maybe looking for outside resources to fill in any gaps. But yeah, both are needed.
I
Um,
love
That's,
that.
that's really good. Yeah, thank you. I was just going to share one last thing. I agreed with both of you what both can offer and contribute to the marriage and the family. I recall when Carol and I first got married, I'll be honest, I had these traditional roles in my mind that they should play out exactly how I was raised with my mom and dad. And my dad was the traditional head of the house, father, husband. He was the last word, and he kind of was the patriarch. He led out that way, and my mother kind of just followed, and that was sort of the system I learned, right? And I I quickly learned that those traditional roles weren't going to work out with me and Carol in our marriage. As soon as we got married, I had to learn, and she had to learn, and we had to come to an agreement to share certain responsibilities that were stereotypically and historically, pigeonholed to one person, a man or a woman, or a father or a husband, right, or a mother. And so we had to kind of alternate and kind of negotiate. Okay, just because I'm the wife and mother, I don't have to do this every time. You can switch off and we can negotiate and navigate this differently. And, these traditional roles don't have to be always men do this all the time and women do that all the time. And so that was a good learning for me. And, after 26 years almost of marriage, I think we're getting to a point where we're finally getting used to the roles that we've created for our marriage, not the traditional roles, whatever that means, right? We've created the Kawika and Carol roles,
Mhm.
and how that works best for us. And so, but it did take some time to figure that out for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good insight. It's not about predefined roles, but you decide together as a couple what's going to work and what direction you want to take, and it's between the two of you, and I would say including God in that conversation and letting him be a part of that effort. And so,
Absolutely.
I would
so
just
I'd
add
love
to that. I
to
love,
go ahead.
sorry, it felt like there was another good idea that I think is important. And you kind of led to this, that not everyone's roles are the same. And I really believe too that those roles change. We may work it out and it may be working for a couple of years, but then life happens and things change. And we've got to be ready and committed to be able to say, yeah, I know this is what I was doing before, but I need to do another role at this time because this is what's needed to make things work. And I think that's important too, saying I can do a good role and I'm willing to do whatever role is needed to make that relationship work is important because it changes. And through years, through health, through financial situations, employment, family, and children, like all of that changes all of the time. And yeah, just being willing to be flexible with that and step in is very, very important too when needed. To wear
Yeah.
a different role when you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Super valuable. Yeah, let's be flexible and continue to have those conversations, those check-ins. Okay, is this still working for you? Is there anything we need to adjust and reevaluate? I think that's a great way to build those interdependent relationships where we're supporting each other, we're depending on each other, and we can do more together than we could do separately. I have just one final question, and that is, if you could wave a magic wand and eliminate the challenges that men are facing in their mental health, emotional health, what would you do? What would you wish for?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I guess my first thought is if I had that magic wand, I would probably help them realize that they can fail sometimes and that's okay. And that there's no such thing as a perfect provider, protector, nurturer, partner. Um, I'm not saying that all men and all husbands sort of have this idea of perfectionism or strive for this maladaptive or irrational perfectionism, but sometimes they beat themselves up way too much
Mm,
over little things, mid-sized things, big things. And that beating up can lead to depression, anxiety, stress, and feeling discouraged and feeling lonely, all the mental health issues, right, that men might experience. And so give men's give themselves some grace. So men who are watching this, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some flexibility, opportunities to learn from mistakes and take those mistakes and improve on them and not let them control your lives, right? And to stand back up and keep moving forward and trying and striving the best they can in all areas, right? Emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. Um, and so again, just give yourself some grace. You're trying your best. We're all trying our best, men, and it's okay to fail sometimes, and it's okay to express failure, and it's okay to emote and have emotions, and to share that with close friends and loved ones. That's actually quite masculine to me. That's a strength of that's a sort of a sign of strength and power when you can express and share vulnerability when you feel down and discouraged. And so it's okay to feel that way, and and it's okay to feel like that as a man.
Yeah, I really like that. And while you're thinking of a response, Nathan, I want to just cut in really quickly because it reminds me of a story. So my husband and I have not had the ideal relationship. We've really struggled, and we've gone through some therapy and some counseling and really tried to work this. I've done my share of nagging and being irritated, and he's done his share of the same, right? But there was this moment that just to me, I wish I could exemplify a little bit more often. So there was this moment we were in the bedroom and he was in the closet, and he calls out to me. He's like, "Man, you should talk to this slob of a husband you have and tell him to clean up after himself." It is true. Like, the closet was a mess. In that moment, I had this response come to me that just it was from heaven, because normally wouldn't respond like this. But just the thought of, I don't know what mess you're talking about. All I see is a man who's really providing for his family and doing his best. He's working hard. And in that moment, like, we both started crying, because it was like we connected. Instead of a moment of frustration, it was this opportunity for us to just realize we're doing our best, giving each other a chance to, um I don't know, I wish I could express that a little bit better, but that's what we need more in our relationships, is that recognition. We're doing our best, and we're not going to get it perfectly all the time, and that's okay. We just keep picking it up and we keep trying.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, and such a special personal kind of experience. But you're right, just those small moments, you really make a big difference in their interactions that we have. If I was to kind of have a wish for males so that they could have better mental health, I really do believe that having a friend matters. And while a couple and a family, those are the most important relationships that we have. Having somebody else to be able to bounce ideas off, to share those challenges with, to model, to say, "Oh, you're a great example. I'll try what you're trying. I'll do what you're doing," or to help through as well and be able to lift up, really matters. Just knowing that you've got a friend that you can turn to discuss, to vent, to best, to just be there for, and then you do the same for them, is really important, and it allows you to process your thoughts, to be appreciative of perhaps the spouse and wife that you have a little bit more. I love saying, I love the problems I have, right? I don't want anyone else's problems. And so
True.
learn to love the ones you're with and to appreciate them even a little bit more through that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate all of your insights and what you brought to the table. I hope that our listeners will take this to heart and reach out to your spouse, your loved one, your partner today, and let them know that they're appreciated, that they're doing a great job, and we build each other up, and we're going to have happier homes and happier families, and our children are going to be so appreciative if we can work together better. So thank you again. I'm glad to have you guys on today.
No,
All
that was
right.
very good. Thank you, Dana. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And Nathan, it was good hearing from you as well. And it was good to do this together. It's interesting that you're doing this thing around men and this idea of connecting with other men and having friends that are male. And look at us together. We're good friends. We're at BYU. We're colleagues doing this very thing. And it seemed like when we were answering these questions, a lot of them were coming out of like maybe even personal connection, personal experience of us too, being friends at BYU. It seemed like it was so fitting for us to be a part of this podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Yeah. Love you, Kawika. Bye.
Yeah, I love you too. Bye. Yeah, my bald brother.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us again. We'd love to hear what you think. How do you strengthen the interdependent relationships in your life? And what other conversations are you interested in having us discuss? Leave a comment below. We will be taking a break in the month of July, but you can check out some special episodes from our newsletter that we'll be posting through Podbean. Find them on our website, bigoceanwomen.org, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We will be back here in August talking about critical issues that affect our families. Be sure to tune in.